Okay, I know that we've got 45 minutes, so I'll get started right now. We are recording this, so if people do join late, they will have access to the recording, and I promise not to go too fast. I will maybe need a reminder of that fact at some point because tend to get on a roll when I start talking about Pressbooks. But essentially, what I'm trying to do with today's presentation is just outline some of the features of a institutional Pressbooks network, how certain institutions are using that, and hopefully answer the question for you, is Pressbooks right for you and your institution? So in terms of a few housekeeping, not rules necessarily, but if you do have any questions that you'd like me to respond to, feel free to use the Zoom question and answer feature. Feel free to use chat just to introduce yourself here, share any comments, pose questions for the group, for other people that are participating, and maybe to respond to questions that I ask or that other participants ask in the chat. So if you'd like, please go ahead and introduce yourself and let us know where you're joining from today. So what is Pressbooks? Pressbooks is book publishing software for the digital age. We think it's a versatile, user-friendly platform that thousands of educators rely on to create, adapt, and share accessible, interactive, web-first books. I like highlighting some of the work that's already been done. And these are some of the books that have been published and on to the Pressbooks directory. And the Pressbooks directory is something that we are super proud of. It launched at the very end of 2020. I know that there was a lot going on in 2020, but it's been live since then and grown from a time when I joined Pressbooks. There was just around 2,000 books that were published to the Pressbooks directory. And I'll show you in a second where we're at now. We've seen tremendous growth with a number of institutions that are using the directory, that are publishing to the directory, and the available books that are available there. So if I go into the Pressbooks directory and it's available for anyone to use, it's pressbooks.directory, and it'll take you there. You'll see now that there are over 6,000, so 6,400 open access books published by 173 different organizations or networks. So 173 networks are publishing to Pressbooks. We do have a number of shared networks that are publishing to the directory, and we know that there are over 360 institutions publishing to the directory itself. We've figured that number to be closer to 500, but this is a great starting point. Not everyone that has a Pressbooks network necessarily publishes to the directory, but every book that is available on the directory is open access. It's not all openly licensed, but they are all openly accessible. And if I scroll down here, you'll see that we have a number of curated collections. So we've had a librarian go through the works that have been published to Pressbooks directory and pick out some of the best. So if you have a chance, you can always filter the network. I've filtered to find the Michigan State network here, but you can filter by network, by subject, by license. So if you're only particularly interested in material that you can clone or adapt, you might want to filter on those open licenses. But there is also a filter for collections. So we have a number of language learning, science, a whole bunch of disciplines that are brought together in the collections. And then one of particular interest always is the student-led OER. So this area highlights a number of open pedagogy projects that institutions have worked with their student body to create the content. So, like I said, I wanted to highlight a few different networks from here. And so what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to go first to that Michigan State University, their Pressbooks network. And you can see here that Pressbooks networks, they're not all the same. Everyone who is organizing a Pressbooks network has the freedom to set up the network as they desire with what information they want their either authors or their public to know. You can see here that Michigan State University has made use of one of the features of, that our tech team added about a year ago. They use this latest titles feature. So they're highlighting some of the books that have published recently on their network. And people can find that information here. They can click on through to the book. So if you wanted more information on the Introduction to Neuroscience book, you can follow that link. You can get right into the book. You can see here that they've made downloads available of the book, so they can download multiple different file formats for this book. And there's a whole wealth of information that's available just on the book itself, but also within the book. So you can see in Pressbooks, if you haven't delved into Pressbooks, this is the structure with the chapters and the parts of the text. And I'm going to just go a little further into that in a second after we go through a couple more networks. So one of the networks here that you'll also see, this is the Open Oklahoma network, the online consortium of Oklahoma Press. And what they've done here, they've used this network to not only give you information on using Pressbooks and how to get into Pressbooks for their users, but they've also set up something to highlight the cost savings that have been generated using OER across the state. They also have some information on their steering committee and who's involved and how to get involved. And so all that information is here, contact. And then there is a new catalog feature, again, very similar to the latest titles feature that you have on the homepage, but the catalog is a new catalog itself. And what you'll see here when you get into the catalog is that it's got the same look and feel of the Pressbooks directory. We had such success with the Pressbooks directory that our partners wanted to use that same type of format with the cover image and the book card so that they could highlight the work that was being done on the network themselves. So you can see here that they have a brandable catalog and that's available, and they can, again, network administrators are responsible and have the ability to change up the books in the catalog. They can highlight all the books that they publish or certain ones. That's all up to them. There are different ways to filter within the catalog similar to the Pressbooks directory. And it's a really nice feature that a lot of networks are making great use of. I'll actually move on to cover the University of Sussex. They actually link directly to the Pressbooks directory, but I really like the look of their cover pages. And you can see here that the books in their latest titles on the homepage are really, really stunning book covers and great OER work. And there's a lot of information about the active learning network on each title and within the network itself. The last network that I'm going to feature is actually a fairly new network that we've partnered with. So the Florida Gulf Coast University has actually just started a Pressbooks network for the institution, and they've been going through setting up and branding the network. And we just recently met with them, and I was so impressed by the work that they had already done. I wanted to highlight it. So it tells information about how to get started, how to register for an account on their network. Again, with a direct link to visit the Pressbooks directory. And I also wanted to show here that, and I'll talk a little bit more about our training programs. But they have highlighted right here for their users that if you need help with your Pressbooks project, they've highlighted our user guide, our YouTube channel, the Pressbooks forum, but also they have a direct link to register for a webinar. So I'll come back to the webinars in a second. When you do have access to a Pressbooks network, and I'm fortunate enough to have access to our demo network, you can see here, again, you can customize the network as an administrator, however you like it, to include whatever information you choose. We've got the network showcase here again for people to see certain books that are highlighted on our network. These are all cloned books, and when you have access to a Pressbooks network, and I'm just going to go into the network itself. When you have access as a user to the Pressbooks network, you can start by creating a book from scratch or adapting a book. So if I was to go back, and I'm just going to clear off the filters and the searches that I've got here, and I'm going to go back to the directory to find a book. I want it to be on sociology, and we've been using, let's say in our class, OpenStax sociology text. But I'm interested in adapting that. So one of the things you'll see here just on this search right now, there's 10 different books that bring up information on sociology and OpenStax specifically. And a number of Pressbooks networks have imported into the network, their network, a copy of most of the OpenStax material. So I happen to know that this book from South Puget Sound Community College, Introduction to Sociology, this is the Introduction to Sociology text. It was, you can see here, this information that was imported into Pressbooks on October 27th, 2021, and it is a straight import of the OpenStax material. They haven't done any adaptation. They've just created their own cover, and they use this on their network with their own students. So I like the fact that this is import of that OpenStax material. So I'm going to choose on my network to adapt a copy of that book. So when I go to clone a book, I just pop in here the URL of the source book that I want to clone from, and I'm going to, let's just call it Intro Soc here. And this is just creating the URL on this network that I want to clone it to. And then from there, I click clone, and a direct copy is made from that network onto this Pressbooks demo network. Now, a couple of things with our cloning routine. The source book does have to be openly licensed, so we won't let you create a copy of a book that isn't openly licensed. And you can also license different sections of a book. So if that's the case, the cloning routine will only copy over onto the network the material that is openly licensed. So you won't get into any copyright jackpot on that. So I'm not going to click clone right now because it does take anywhere from 5 to 10 minutes to clone a book from one network to another, but I did this earlier. So I'm just going to go down to my Intro to Sociology book. And you can see here, it copied over the cover of the book and all the content, including any of the custom styles that have been used with an author. So if you like the look of a book, our cloning routine will copy over any custom styles that an author has attributed with their book. And if I go into organize here, you can see here that the chapters of the book are all there, and now I can either rearrange. So if I wanted to move theoretical perspectives Oh, sorry, that didn't take. There we go. Theoretical perspectives in front of the history of sociology. I can do that simply moving that around here. Or if I wanted to move it back down, I can just click move down and that'll make the switch. I can go into a chapter, and I'm just going to go into a chapter here that I got started working on. So I've made some interactive updates to this chapter. Number one, I found a YouTube video that I really liked this explanation of the sociological imagination. And so I included that in this book. So you just, with a YouTube, you can just embed the URL for the YouTube video into the book, and it'll pull that up. And I'm going to just scroll down here. Didn't make too many changes here, but if you know OpenStax well, you know that it was typically designed for a print environment. They do supply print. So at the end of each chapter, there'll be a section quiz. So, sorry, end of each section, section quiz. And that was the case with this book. But what I've done is I've taken the printed copy of that quiz, and I've turned that into an H5P activity. So you can see here the H5P short code. So each Pressbooks network includes access to your own H5P hub. So I can include content from H5P here. I can include new material. I can I can draw up new stuff or embed old stuff. Not old stuff necessarily, but if I was to go back to the Pressbooks directory, you'll see here that the Pressbooks directory does include information on the number of H5P activities in each book. So if I like the look of an H5P activity, oh, sorry, that's not a good one to go to. Here we go, let's fingers crossed. So on this book for Introduction to Sociology, you can see here that they've also included a number of H5P activities. Now, I don't have to search through the whole book to find those H5P activities. I can go in here and I can have a look, and this is on the sociological perspective. If I like the look of this, I can just click reuse. That'll download a copy of this H5P that I can now upload into my own network and include in the chapter that I'd like. So I can add material as long as it's openly licensed. I can do that whenever I like. So the end result on this chapter is you can see here now the video is available. If I scroll down, you can see that H5P activity is available here. Students can answer the questions and get immediate feedback. And then that section quiz, we took the questions from the printed section quiz and put it into an H5P activity that once again students can go through. And I'm not going to do great because I didn't read the whole chapter. And oh, now I gotta bear down here. Oh, 0 for 4. So you can embed the H5P activities directly within the text. Now, H5P is something that's available and it's an open tool. It's openly licensed. You can use it in other formats, but because we've got an H5P hub embedded within each Pressbooks network, it's nice to have the questions immediately presented to the students once they've read the material, so that you can have that in-process check right there in the content. So I'm going to go back here just to make sure. So Pressbooks directory. Yeah, so we're turning that book into a piece of courseware with H5P. With the H5P hub that's built into each Pressbooks network, there's over 50 different activity types. So 50 different ways that you can assess learning. And there's multiple choice, true, false. There's flashcards. There's a great feature on interactive videos for students. So you present a video, and it could be a YouTube video. And with that, as students go through that interactive video, again, you can set points in the video where you want to ask a question, and then students will need to respond before they see the rest of the video. So it's a great way, and there's a lot of great tools to build that interactive activities into your book and make it a better learning tool for your students. Okay, so I wanted to talk about training again. You saw on the Florida Gulf Coast Network that they have the ability for their users to register directly for a webinar. Anyone using a Pressbooks network has that ability. The Pressbooks directory, or sorry, their training program and our webinars. You probably got to this webinar by following this link, but if you go to our site at pressbooks.com/webinars, you'll see that you can sign up for monthly Getting Started with Pressbooks webinars, or advanced publishing, where our support team goes through, number one, an introduction to Pressbooks and how to get started with the network, how to get started with a book, how to use a lot of the tools to create your book. And then the second one, the advanced publishing, how do you build interactives, how to engage with more complex activities, and also how to identify accessibility issues in your text and remediate for those. So how do you use our media library to do that effectively? So we have extensive training that's available for end users and for network managers. And so the best thing about Pressbooks, to my way of thinking, is that we set these networks up. And if you're ready to launch your OER program away from just using OER in class to adapting and creating your own OER with your faculty, I'd really love to see you get access to a Pressbooks network, whether it's a shared network or set up one for your own institution. So that's it. I'm John McLeod. I'm a Pressbooks account manager. You can reach me at sales@pressbooks.com if you would like to set up a consultation where we could go over where you're at with your publishing journey and with OER specifically. But Pressbooks is good for not just OER, but any publishing on campus that you need to do. So we have users that have set up Pressbooks networks and will publish not just OER material, but they'll do publishing of their course calendars. They'll publish reports. They'll publish anything that they normally would do in-house in other systems. They'll use Pressbooks to do, including some journals. We have some people that are publishing to journals using Pressbooks. So thank you for attending. I'm going to be on for a little while. If you have any questions, if you want to come off mute and ask any questions, I'm going to just check the chat right now. Yeah, sorry. I didn't ask earlier if there were any questions as we were going through, but now's your chance if you have any. I don't see any in the question and answer section. If you do have a question and you don't want to type it in chat, if you raise your hand, we can take you off mute. But thank you for attending.